Hey, fourth graders, welcome back to Reader's Workshop. Are you ready to hear the ending of Pete and Pickles? Did you think about using your schema, your background knowledge, and what you already know about the text to help you think about making an accurate prediction? Remember the word accurate is pretty close to how the ending really turns out, right? We'll do a quick review just to refresh your memory of the story and what predictions are before we share what your prediction was, and hopefully you nailed it. So, again, predictions are thinking about what's going to happen next. Different than an inference. An inference is when you try and put together the pieces to figure out what's happening in the story right now, because the author isn't being very clear about it. It's kind of like that show don't tell. The author is showing you with words, not telling you directly what's happening, and you have to kind of put all the pieces together to figure out what's happening in the moment now. That's an inference. A prediction is, oh, I bet this is happening in the story because later this is going to happen. So it's about the future. Think about that crystal ball, predictions, telling the future, like a fortune teller, okay? So you were asked to listen to me read Pete and Pickles, and I left you saying, okay, how do you think this story is going to end? And your job was to make your prediction using your schema, your background knowledge, and your experiences in combination with what you know about the text to help you decide how you thought the story was going to end. Okay? So I hope that you guys have shared your predictions. And I will, tell your teachers to make sure that you share before watching the video, because now I'm going to finish reading Pete and Pickles, and I will unveil how the story really ends. And I hope your predictions were pretty close, if not very accurate or 100% spot on. So, last we left Pete and Pickles, I'll back up a page. Remember? They were here. Pickles broke the bathtub and flooded the house, remember? And Pete was a little bit upset and was like, run for higher ground. And the house flooded. Okay? So, and then if we go to the next page, Pete is up at the window and Pickles is under the water. Okay? So I'll read the last line. Pete clung tightly to the last open window. He looked back down into the face of one far too heavy to join him and noticed once again, as always, a smile. So here she is drowning. She's underwater, and that Pickles is smiling. I wonder why. At that terrible moment, what occurred to Pete was not how his life had become so unpredictable, so unpractical, and so completely complicated with Pickles. No, what occurred to Pete was his life without her. That endless night would be the longest of all their great journeys. And when the fireman finally climbed into the window the next morning, he could not believe what he found. Can you see that picture? There's Pete hanging from the window, breathing into Pickles' trunk. He found a very small pig, breathing for a very large elephant. All night, every hour, every minute, every breath shared. When they finally emptied the house, the firemen looked down in puzzlement at the exhausted pair of sleeping friends. They tried but could not pull Pete from the mighty grasp of Pickles. The two slept all day, through the night, and on until morning. When they awoke to pick blueberries on the dandelion moons of Pluto, Pete sang Italian love songs. The end. I hope your predictions were pretty close and pretty accurate. It's such an amazing book. And one thing I would like to share, in addition to how wonderful this book is, and teaching predictions, and the illustrations are lovely, all of that. I'm going to read to you the very last part of the book that kind of explains the inspiration behind it. And I think it's just absolutely fabulous, and I think you will too. It's a message from the author. Some years ago, I got up from the table of a safari-themed restaurant and noticed the crayon sketch my daughter, 5, had left behind. Amidst the ketchup stains, an elephant emerged holding a small pig in a nose hug and putting flowers on its head. Why, I asked Sophie, is the elephant doing that? The pig's sad, she said. Why? She looked at me like she does her little brother, which is without sympathy. Because he's lonely, Dad. Then she leaned in and whispered, but he doesn't know it. I fleshed out her sketch later that day. 2 years later, I colored in all the lines. Her lines. Ours. I think it's the start of a beautiful friendship. So, this story came from, I'm showing you the picture. Can you see the napkin? It was a drawing on a napkin, and it turned into this fantastic book. So inspiration can come from anywhere. You just need to open your mind to it and let your imagination run wild, okay? Kind of like when you're making a prediction, right? You don't want your imagination to go too wild, but you want to be creative with it, because that's what you're going to assume an author would do, is be creative. Okay? Great job today, everybody. And I look forward to our next Reader's Workshop.